President. My name is Tom Cranwood. I'm with the Leadership Program of the Rockies. And I love your model of turning a kind of judo move on the burden of proof, the burden of assumption. And I want to suggest that maybe we go even a little farther than you have. And that is to suggest that with regard to federal regulation of guns, the Second Amendment is utterly irrelevant. The 28th Amendment that you're referring to, that would repeal it, even if the Second Amendment would be repealed, that is no grant of power to Congress.
That's exactly right.
This is why Hamilton argued
against the Bill of Rights.
Against the Bill of Rights. He said, don't start listing rights. Rather, pay attention to what few powers we have granted to Congress. And if we have not granted that power, when Congress wants to hold hearings on guns, there should only be one question asked. It has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. The only question is, did we, the people, grant to Congress, through the Constitution, the power to regulate weapons? And if the answer is no, that is the end of the conversation, and it does not matter what the Second Amendment means, or what a militia was, or what kind of guns they had then or now. All of that is a distraction from the key subject, that they have only the few powers we have granted to them.
The powers were not needed. It's exactly correct. We didn't even grant them the powers. Those are natural rights that come from natural law. Those are granted by God. And they can't get taken away by any people. You have no right to overturn the Second Amendment or the First Amendment or any of the Bill of Rights, because those are natural law rights. Those are God-given rights. And by the way, if you look at the First Amendment's a great example. Many people on the right think that the First Amendment grants us the right to free speech. There's no such thing. The First Amendment assumes that every single one of us has the right to free speech upon birth as Americans. It is an inalienable right, and all the First Amendment does is say that this right cannot be taken away from you. This idea of natural law is very important, because if government didn't give us these rights, the government can't take them away from us. We're the only country in the history of the world founded on natural law. As far as just two little minutiae things that are not opposing what you just said, because you're precisely right. Let me just say two things about the Second Amendment as it's written, because you'll often hear liberals arguing this. First thing they'll often say is that, well, the Second Amendment should only apply to muskets, because at the time of the Revolution, you'll see many people writing on blogs or on comments on Facebook that the Second Amendment should only apply to muskets because those were the guns that they had. And the response to that is, well, then by that argument, the First Amendment only applies to anything written on a piece of parchment with an ink quill. It's kind of ironic that you're writing on electronic media that's traveling through the world at the speed of light, and you still claim the First Amendment right. You don't have any problem with that technology advancing. No one's saying that you should have to write it on a parchment and hand it out before your First Amendment right applies. So there's that little piece of ammunition you can hand out. And you'll often hear people say that, oh, well, the Second Amendment is, it says a well-regulated militia being necessary, so you can have your guns as long as you're in a well-regulated militia. And my two responses to that are, number one, are you really sure you want us in a real well-regulated militia? And my second response, of course, and this is something you should never forget when they bring up a militia, the definition of a militia is a group of citizens who can be called up in time of emergency, who go home and get their own weapons. That's what a militia is. Thanks very much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Mr.